To think he went from aligning teeth to realigning human DNA. Here's your look at the Hasbro. This is the G.I. Joe retro card back, Dr. Mindbender. Dr. Mindbender was once an orthodontist who made the tragic mistake of experimenting on himself. While tinkering with an electric brainwave stimulation as the means of relieving dental pain, he underwent a complete personality change and became hateful, deceitful, and vain. His personal mission is now to bring the miracle of thought control to everyone. I don't mind the part about the mind control, just as long as it can be covered through my company's insurance. Shall we take the tape measure and see how tall the retro card Dr. Mindbender stands? And they'll bring in a couple of other figures for comparisons. I had the original one as a kid from 1985. I didn't get my chance to grab the classified edition, and now it's going for some stupid money. From what I can see, at least, Dr. Mindbender looks to be using the same body. He seems to also be coming included with his same accessories. Let's, though, as promised, the tape measure is going to tell us that Dr. Mindbender, as crazy as it may seem, is going to stand at 6 inches in height. It's no crazy as well to think that the figure is going to be 15.5 centimeters tall. As for Hasbro's other offerings, here's what Dr. Mindbender looks like with the retro card back Cobra Commander. Not really quite the retro card back, but still stands in scale. Here's what he also looks like with the classified series Battle Android Trooper, or Bat if you prefer. And while we're still sticking with retro card backs, even though he's not part of Cobra yet, here's what the figure looks like with G.I. Joe leader Duke. Let me also bring this to your attention as well, that the retro card back figures do have, though being much bigger this time around, a file card that you can cut out for yourself. It has the languages represented here. I think that's English, Spanish, a few other things as well. I suppose French is probably in there as well. And some advertisements as well as other retro card figures as part of this wave. We got Rock and Roll and a Viper. Definitely want to get my hands on that Viper. Let's move that off to the side though. So, Dr. Mindbender, from what I can see at least, seems to be using the same body as the classified series. He's a little less, though, on the accessory count, but I don't think he really is missing a whole lot. He does have at least, though, things that are referenced back to the 1985 release of Dr. Mindbender. Not one of them happening to be, though, a display stand. The old days of G.I. Joe never really had display stands. You could always really buy the accessory packs after the fact. But, of course, you got yourself a display stand here. This does have Cobra on the top. If I just grab one here to the side, this is, I think, may have been the one that came included with Duke. Same size stands. Of course, you've got the stars and stripes on the one side. You've got Cobra's logo on the other. I always thought that Cobra had a cooler logo. Being that it also does have 2 pegs instead of just the one, you can take actually both of Mindbender's feet holes and plug them onto the display base. Now, he doesn't have a name at all placard on the front of this, even though this really is a flat section and an ideal section, because if you look at this side's completely smooth, right? This side is a flat spot, almost just the ideal spot to write Dr. Mindbender. Although if I wrote it, I'd never be able to write it that small. It would just probably be, some of the D would probably be carrying off to the top. I would never be able to get something that small. But I think that they probably could have either easily put Dr. Mindbender on the front, or they could have just phoned it in and called it Cobra instead. Anyways, let's move that aside. The original vintage Dr. Mindbender did come included with a couple of these accessories that look really familiar. Now, in the original one, they would have actually come with like a little square box that would have then plugged to a hose here. The box looked very much like a guitar amp. He has something a little bit more simplified this time around. It actually looks like one of those more expensive water bottles. You know, the ones that are... I have one of them, so I can't really talk. But it's like stainless steel on the inside. It's BPA free. It's all that fun stuff. Mine is also inside of its own water bottle cozy. I think I probably paid like $50 for it. Stop that. This is all molded, though, in all black plastic. It does have a little hose there, a little peg on the top for the hose. And the hose is just going to plug in place just like that, kind of line up the hole, and yeah, you know how it works. Now, the original vintage toy and the classified series also had this as well. What it actually did do, I had no idea. Even as a kid, I had no idea. I was kind of pretended like it was just a laser gun. This would have originally all been cast in gray plastic. This time around, we actually get a black plastic with a silver-ended handle, or silver-ended nozzle. And then that just plugs on, because there's a peg right there, just plugs onto the other end of the hose. Now, Dr. Mindbender could hold this in his hands. Normally, in the original vintage toy, there would have not been a place to store this. I think the backside probably would have even been hollow. However, though, with the new release of Mindbender, gotta move his cape out of the way, there's a hole right here. And if you look at the expensive water bottle, there's a peg right here. So you just take the peg and line it to the hole, plug it in place. And I was actually surprised that it stayed as well as it did. Although, unfortunately, it kind of pushes the curtain of the cape to the side. And of course you can just go ahead and put that into his hands. Now you can have it displayed, I suppose, this way, so it looks more like a weather prod. One of the weather rods, or you can also have it just displayed that way. Kind of looks like he has a squirting gun. The other thing that he also does come included with as well, if you want to still stick with vintage, a somewhat vintage-looking pistol. Like with that wand or whatever that thing was, it was originally cast in gray plastic. The same could be said as well for the pistol. The pistol would have been all done in gray plastic. This time around we get it in black. It does fit into Dr. Mindbender's hands, just like that. Hey, that's super easy. And then, of course, you can just lift the arm. There is also a holster on the side. You can take the pistol and holster it right there. It's strange, though, that there's other companies that can't release their figures with guns, yet Hasbro apparently has no issues at all releasing figures with pistols, like real-looking pistols, too, not futuristic things either. Speaking of futuristic things, the figure does also come included with this gun that looks like the original 60s Mr. Freeze gun. Very similar, in fact. It's molded in the same black plastic. It has the same silver that gets the end nozzle done. And of course that can fit into his hand as well. You also have a peg right here too. So if you don't like the look of it like this, you just detach this and plug it onto the end of here. So now you can have it that way. So that does certainly look a little bit more like Mr. Freeze's freeze gun. And this, of course, the expensive water bottle, plug in the exact same spot. The last thing that Dr. Mindbender comes included with for his accessories is this gun here. Now, while the Vintage never had this, the Classified series certainly did. The Classified, while this not having a removable piece, did seem to also come included with tiny little silver canisters that I guess in theory Dr. Mindbender would be able to just pull the one off that he's not using anymore and just plug the new one in place. The Classified series Dr. Mindbender also came included with like a kind of like a red kind of a container, like a canister. Came also included with a brain. Came also included with I think a severed hand, like a little mummified hand. Perhaps all the things that he needs to make himself Serpentor. We know how successful Serpentor really was. Apparently, though, just smashing one of the canisters with a chain was just enough for Serpentor to be a flawed character, even though really he had the things of all the greatest warriors and intellectual geniuses over history. Either way, though, this can also really be stored in his holster, too. Though the thing about it, though, is because this has a little piece sticking up, when you are putting it in place, it's really harder to fit in there. And I know it's not really supposed to be in there, but if you want a place to kind of store it, you can kind of somewhat phone it in and store it on the side as well, because there is no other place really that can plug onto the figure's body. With that all being said, let's get a closer look at Mindbender here. Man, I really wish I had the original 80s one. Though growing up with G.I. Joe, my favorite time for Joes was around 85. 85 where kind of Flint took over, Duke maybe wasn't as much in the front and center. We also had the introduction of Hawk, and all the 80s, like the mid-80s characters, Serpentor being one of them, the Battle Android Troopers being another, and the Cobra Viper, one of my favorite Cobra Troopers of all time. Cobra Viper became the infantry for of course, Cobra. Now, the head sculpt, though, for Dr. Mindbender, from what I can see at least, seems to be the exact same one that the Classified series got as well. He's got a little monocle on the side. Don't try to peel this off first to think that there's maybe an eye underneath. Maybe there is an eye. It's kind of hard to really see through the plastic, but I would imagine it would be a hard time to kind of get that back in place. It follows very much the format of the original vintage Cobra's Dr. Mindbender, right down to the fact he's got a very muscular torso. I was always kind of really alarmed the fact that this guy would be the genius madman behind the scenes, the mad scientist of Cobra, and yet he was very overly muscular. He has all the basic things that the original Dr. Mindbender would have had. So it was like the purple pants, for example, the little gauntlets that he has on his arms that really get a nice little bit of silver added in there as well. The big boots, for example, it's got the flaps on the tops. Now, these are a soft plastic. They probably made them soft like this so that when it comes to the figure's articulation, you shouldn't have too much of an issue at all. Now, on the back, though, of the figure's body, like with the original Mindbender would have had almost like a felt cape with a big Cobra symbol on the back done in silver. This one has this as well. Although with the original one, I think it didn't plug in. Oh, yes, it did. It kind of wrapped around, very similar to like the old Star Wars vintage toys, where you kind of had the arms be the things that hold the cape in place. Mindbenders, from what I remember, also did the exact same thing. They did this too here. One thing I'm happy at least to see is that they allotted for enough fabric on this side, because I was kind of initially thinking if this was really thin fabric, that would so easily rip. But it does look like they've used a decent quality material, one that, as well with this being as thick as it is, probably isn't going to rip. Plus, too, they've allotted for enough space, not only for his pits to breathe, but also I would imagine that that's just enough that if you rotate the arms around, you move them out and about like that, you're not going to probably start to clip the fabric. The only thing I would really say, though, I don't love the way they've done the top of the cape. From what I remember, Dr. Mindbender had this kind of really large crest, kind of the top to his cape like that. This doesn't really have any. Had they only maybe added a wire or something like that, where at least the top of the cape, the collar, I guess if the collar of the cape could have stuck up a little bit further like this. I mean, I guess you could also fold it back too. It's just personal preference. I personally like my cape a little bit higher on Mindbender. All in all, it looks just like the original 80s toy, just a lot bigger, and obviously having a lot more articulation as well, which we will run through right now. Dr. Mindbender's head is going to be on a ball joint. It allows the head to rotate all the way around. The head's going to look up and down, and of course in between you can move it back and forth. In addition to that, you may be able to see that Dr. Mindbender does also have a ball joint at the base of the neck, so that works hand in hand with the ball joint we've already had a look at. As for his arms, they rotate all the way around, no issues there. They've also allotted for enough space where you can bring those arms out. There's like a cut done to the top of the torso where you can bring those arms up at 90 degrees, or a T-pose if you prefer. This arm, unfortunately, is a little tighter, but it still moves out, still gets that 90-degree angle done. You got the bicep swivel, of course. The figure does also have a double hinge on the elbow, and the hands rotate all the way around. The top of the torso is on a crunch. One thing to see as well is as you move the crunch forward, these straps aren't attached to anything. They're only really attached down below here, but they're not glued enough in place. So at least when you're moving the torso around, you're not going to have any issues there. I had actually more issues with the cape kind of sliding down, but you're probably never going to have the figure, unless he's dealing with arthritis, you're probably never going to have him on the shelf looking like this. So yeah, he does have the top of the torso crunch. He has a bit of a swivel back and forth for the waist. Legs do split out. And of course you can take them and move them forward and back. The legs do drop down too. I mean, not that he's going to be sitting inside of a vehicle, but there's always that option available. You just pop the leg back in place. There's a swivel there at the top of the thigh, a double hinge on the knee. The boots do move separately. There is some ankle pivot there as well, an ankle rocker. Mentioned this already, I'll mention it again. The figure does also have pegals on the bottoms of his feet. Dr. Mindbender, yeah, I know, collecting like the classified series figures, I know for a while, like Hasbro really was kind of reinventing the line, and then after a while, it almost just seems like they gave up and said, you know what, old collectors like my age would probably be more interested to get larger scale Joes and Cobras that looked essentially like the original vintage toys. So it seems like after really like the first wave of G.I. Joe classified series figures, they sort of have now just given into the idea that collectors just want the same thing that they had when they were as a kid, which is why even like the retro colored figures all kind of really look like the original 80s toys. Again, that's not really the retro card back of the Cobra Bat, but that's the classified series. But then we also had ourselves a retro card back Cobra Commander. I had a Destro at one point as well. I don't know where Destro's whereabouts went. But I do like the look of Dr. Mindbender. I do actually like that he comes included with some accessories that are a throwback to the original days of collecting these toys as a kid. Again, you got the hose there, and you got the little wand piece that he has that just connects to the end. Unlike this one, though, with the original toy, where there really wasn't a place to store the guitar amp, even though I know it really wasn't a guitar amp, there at least a peg on this expensive water bottle that can plug onto the back of Dr. Mindbender's body. So there's a place at least to store that when he's carrying a wand around the wand. Whatever he's going to be doing with the wand, I can't imagine it's going to be good, especially if there's Joes currently in his clutches. If in fact this is a board over Bender from the original Classified release, then the only thing really that the Classified could say that it had that the retro card couldn't was it also came included with a couple of domes. They were all red tinted domes. You actually got two of them. One was a little longer than the other, and I think you could open them up and store inside a mummified human hand, a brain, or a skull. I mean, those all sound like fun things. What I don't, though, want to spend is $150 to $200 to get my hands on a Classified series Dr. Mindbender, when if I'm getting the same figure here, I can get the retro card back for around $30 to $35. In actual fact, I actually grabbed this one from the Facebook selling group. Couldn't find this guy at all in the stores, and I tried looking too. But luckily, though, Popeye the Toy Man had it as one of his more recent listings, and I quickly grabbed it from him. I still want to get my hands, though, on Rock and Roll, and I would really like to get at least a couple of the Cobra Vipers, because for me, the 1985 time frame of G.I. Joe was really more my jam. I love like the original I want to say generation one, because I know we tend to think of that with Transformers, but the early days of G.I. Joe, I still love those old cartoons, but right around the 80s, like the mid 80s, was when we got like the Serpentors, we got Dr. Mindbenders, we got the Cobra Stuns. I really always like the Cobra Stun a lot more than the Cobra Hiss. Right now, ducking to make sure nobody's throwing anything at me. What do you guys think of retro card back Dr. Mindbender? Let me know down below in the comment section. Were you guys lucky enough to pick up the classified series, or are you happy just to stick with the retro card back? If you guys did also want to go back and check out my previous reviews that I've done for G.I. Joe, granted I haven't really done a lot of them, but hopefully that will be changing in the upcoming videos. But if you guys also did enjoy this video, hi, how about doing a solid and throwing a like? You guys want to stick around for more so? I hope so. Hit the subscribe, turn on that bell so you can get those reminders every time a new video posts, and come back. You know, there's always going to be new content coming your way on this channel. As always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.